Hello and welcome to Yesteryear's Mac Games, where today I'm taking another shot at a game I covered 5 years ago. Greebles is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best Macintosh shareware games out there, and it deserves a lot more than what I was capable of in 2013, with a cheap VGA splitter device and a blue and white Power Mac G3, which has since had its power supply explode. I've been told this sound is from War of the Worlds. Greebles was developed by Peter N. Lewis as Stairways Software. It was his only game, with his focus more geared towards applications and useful utilities such as Anarchy, FTP'd, Internet Config, and others. Released in 1997, I found it bundled on the cover disc of issue 60 of Mac format, and it instantly became a favourite. The game takes place across 100 levels of mazes. Some have been pre-arranged, but the bulk of these are randomly generated, drawing in speedily before the level starts. The objective is to drive your tank through these, and push blocks about to squash every single Greeble in each stage. The game's mechanics originate from the arcade title Pengo, where the player controlled a penguin trying to push 3 diamond blocks together. I'm not aware of many other games that played like this, but on the Mac, Greebles' direct comparison would be Bubble Trouble, an Ambrosia title which I've also covered that was a tad more straightforward. Anyway, Greebles is a multiplayer game at heart. Even if you're on your own, you can switch on additional AI-controlled tanks to help out. It's nice to have these guys around, as they do help a little bit, although there is no logic to the directions they take, and will trundle around randomly, firing blocks if there happens to be something to fire at. Just Greebles if they're friendly, but each other, and you, if they're set to nasty. Essentially then, it still needs to be the player that does most of the work to complete the levels, so turning the AI bots on isn't a complete cop-out. So what is a Greeble? Well, it's a fly, and a crab, and a moth, and a dumper truck, and some sort of ramp? Oh, and Pac-Man. So a Greeble isn't really anything in particular, but they come from the clucking Greeble generators, and kill a player on touch. The types of Greeble vary between stages, which is a key part of what stops the game getting stale, and different types of Greeble do seem to have different traits. Crabs have a much higher chance of making a right turn when an opportunity to do so presents itself, resulting in them tornadoing around in circles, while the black and white flies prefer doubling back on themselves, so skitter up and down a beaten path until they're dealt with. Some are nastier than others, but are clearly marked so. A white cockroach, for instance, differs from the black in that it can push blocks at tanks, or become a Greeble generator when squashed. Think you've squashed them all? Think again. These generators will clunk and pluck away, filling the screen with more things to splat. Tanks can break blocks when there's another block behind it, so the black generators can be easily crushed if they're not isolated. The red ones, however, are armoured, no crushing here. These can be dealt with by surrounding them with other blocks, which isn't simple if you're playing on normal or suicidal difficulty modes, as the blocks the player push can ricochet back for a self-kill. The other big variable between levels is what's in the blocks. Some may have some traits, such as being immovable or super bouncy. Others might have power-ups inside. They're pretty typical as far as power-ups go. Shield, speed up, pause the Greebles, extra life, and some other stuff. But the best block out there, or worse depending on how predictable you like things, is the bomb. Featuring a novelty black sphere bomb on it, these things explode when they hit something, and if there's a lot of them, you're looking at all sorts of chain reactions. This is super dangerous if you're playing properly from the start of the game with limited lives. But if you just want to blow stuff up and muck about, head into the custom game mode and type in level 61 or 62. Even better, turn the difficulty to suicidal, and even more will spawn in and spontaneously combust. So you can play from the start of the game with lives on, or go unlimited in the custom game section and start at later levels. The latest you can start at is 70, and 100 is impossible to complete. In that one, all squashed crab Greebles turn into a tough generator. It's impossible to remove them all. Now you could argue that turning off the lives is cheating, but in all honesty, that's how I always played. I didn't need to have them turned off, but I don't think playing a standard game is really as fun as messing around, and occasionally killing yourself, and or your friends, for a laugh. The high score is disabled in this mode anyway, so you're not putting impossible figures into the chart. Highlighted levels then to muck about on are the aforementioned 2 bomb levels, 61 and 62. Stage 85, which sees all crabs become crushable generators. This one can become incredibly chaotic if you let it. All of the slaughter levels see unprecedented numbers of Greebles culled by the player if they can reach the death block in time. and level 10, where I used to play it on its own as a challenge with a friend over who could crush the most cash blocks for points before the AIs killed all the Greebles. Multiplayer can be entirely local, with all players sharing a keyboard, a bit of a squash if there's 4 of you, or over the internet. The game will support up to 8 players on the net, or in this case, 2 humans and 6 AIs, and it's nice enough if you can't play it locally, but it does lack the flair of being able to shout at your friend if they squash you. Voice chat on the internet wasn't really a thing in the 90s. For me, Greebles got everything right. The music, which you can hear, was twee-sounding but oddly suitable. The sound effects were amusing but not distractingly so. The variety of stages were great, difficulty wasn't too high and could be bypassed altogether if desired, and there was plenty of ways to screw up and lose a life, which often left me chuckling. You know, that's a rare thing actually, dying in a game and not feeling bad about it. The game then really was its own unique thing. Recently, however, I bumped into an indie title called Oh No, Bugs. This was referenced by its developer as their own version of Greebles, and it seems to have replicated the general feel of it rather well. It lacks a lot of the mechanics that made Greebles great, but it's nice to see I'm not the only one who thought the premise was brilliant. So, how to summarise Greebles? In short, this is my favourite Macintosh Shareware title, and I've frequently fired it up over the past 20 years, solo and with friends, and it's always fun. If I had to recommend one single game for the Classic MacOS, out of all of the ones that I've covered for someone to go and play, it would be this one. However, unfortunately, this is a lot easier said than done. This title will not work well under emulation. Various things are broken in Basilisk 2 and Sheepshaver, so to experience Greebles properly, you will need original hardware. Peter Lewis did, however, release the game as freeware once the Classic macOS was dead and buried, along with a nice list of additional registration keys for network play. So if you have a Macintosh that will run it, latest 68Ks and all-power PC Macs booting systems 7 through 9 work great, head over to the Garden, the Repo, or the Wayback Machine and give it a download. That's it then for this edition of YY's MG. If you have thoughts or memories about this title, hit me up in the comments, or on the Twitter. I tweet about my Mac-related goings-on at YY's MG. Subscribe to the channel to keep on top of future content, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.